Hey, what's good, y'all? At the end of the video, I'm giving my subscribers some shout outs for pushing me over 200 customers. 200 customers, 200 subscribers. Appreciate you guys. I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. All right, stay tuned.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we got some updates for Dune Awakening. So a few days ago they released the second episode of Dune Direct, where host Zoe Geschwind sat down to chat with the game's creative director, Joel Bylos.
I'm not gonna Dune Awakening. I was never really big into the. Actually, I can't say that. I can't say I wasn't big into it. It's not the correct way to say it. I wasn't aware of the Dune series. Like, I didn't know anything about it until until the movies came out. The two most recent movies. I know they had movies in the past. I think like in the 80s or something. Probably even before that. I don't even know. But I am very excited for this game after watching the most recent two movies because those are really, really good. And I like this whole universe with the Fremen and all that. And I think I heard that they're trying to do something a little different from the story, where the main character from the actual movie is like non-existent. Like, he wasn't born. Like, there's like a different timeline based on different decisions that were made prior to his birth or something. So I'm curious as to what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna talk about that in this video.
This was a 30-minute presentation. In the first half, they focused on a bunch of the narrative stuff. They replayed a story cinematic from a couple weeks ago, and they discussed the game's alternate timeline history, so no one gets too upset if events within the game conflict with events within the original books and stories, right? Now, the back half of the video is where the good stuff came in, the stuff that I'm interested in. So first, we get a closer look at character creation. This includes the typical assortment of toggles and sliders for your visual appearance. Quite a few options here for height, body proportions, facial features, and your coloring. In addition to that, there's selecting your background and training, which actually comes with some gameplay implications as well. So first, you will choose your home world as well as your cast, and depending on those choices, you're going to gain access to one unique emote as well as some unique dialogue traits, which will then unlock additional options when speaking to certain NPCs in the game. And then
Okay, that sounds pretty normal. Like in what was it? In Starfield, they had that, right? In Starfield, you can be depending on where you're from. If you're like a neon street rat, then you'll have certain like different dialogues. Especially if you go to neon, you have more opportunities to throw in dialogue that only someone who's from neon would be able to say. Same thing in Cyberpunk. The only thing is that those extra dialogue options, they never changed like the story. They never really had much of an effect. It was just a different dialogue choice, but you still end up getting to the same result towards the end. That's what it felt like to me. So I don't know. The different dialogue choices, it kind of feels more cosmetic, you know, like not like story breaking, story changing.
lastly, you pick your mentor, and this will determine what is basically your starting class, unlocking access to specific training as well as certain skills. So the four roles in this game include the Sword Master, who's all about close quarters aggression. Their starting ability, Deflection, is a defensive stance that deflects ranged attacks. Then there is the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, who focuses on physical mastery and manipulation. Their starting ability, Compel, forces enemies to be pulled towards you. The Mentat is all about recon and strategy. Their ability, Battlefield Calculation, is basically like an area scan highlighting enemies and objects. And then finally there is the Trooper, all about offense and demolition. Their ability, Shigawire Cable, is essentially a grapple hook letting you grab onto and swing around the environment. So the one that you pick will determine your starting point and which abilities you immediately have access to, but it doesn't limit how you build your character going forward. As they've said, Dune Awakening does not have a strict class system, and you can can unlock any ability within the game. So you're going to start with the one that you pick, but then as you play, you'll discover mentors in the game of the other disciplines who you can then train from to learn their abilities. Now, after highlighting the character creator, they revealed that recently they opened up their persistent beta. So there is an active test of Dune Awakening happening right now with servers running 24/7. They said there's a lot of players in this test. A lot could mean anything, but they're testing the game from start to finish. That's the important thing. They're beginning in the desert with a fresh character. They're going through the survival crafting loop. They're leveling up, improving their professions, getting new abilities, building buildings, and then also passing through the faction system where they are picking what side they want to fight for, and then eventually reaching endgame where they are testing out the deep desert as well as the game's PvP. Now, of the test, Joel said that they have been gathering a lot of useful feedback. They've been finding bugs, putting out plenty of fires, and they also added that with the beta underway, we can expect to start seeing some more gameplay, in particular combat, on display sometime in the coming months. Now, they weren't exactly specific, again, as to the current number of beta participants, although I do know that signups are still open and available on their website if you're looking for a chance to be invited, and they did mention that they will be bringing in more people as time goes on. So even if you're not in the test right now, there is a chance to get invited in the coming months as far as we know. Now, the final section of the video, this is what I was really excited about. Here, Joel discussed some of the things that make Dune Awakening an MMO. So we started off by saying, so a lot of survival games are either you have the solo games like Subnautica, you have the local server multiplayer Valheim style games, and then you have the larger single server games like Conan Exiles or Ark with a large number of players on a single map. With Dune, what we are trying to do is have these multiple maps where you can play with many, many hundreds of people, so it is a large world to explore and share with others. Now, as he continued, we learned that Dune Awakening is not going to be a single massive open world MMO with like one large world that's seamlessly connected, a play space that you can seamlessly move through its zones. That's not what this game is going to be. Rather, think of survival game maps that are then connected through what they're calling the overworld map, which is functionally like an interactive menu, more or less. So to quote Joel here, he said, the reason we call it a survival MMO as opposed to just a survival game is that most survival games do one map and one server, but we have multiple connected servers running a single world, and that allows us to have a lot more players. So it looks like how it's going to work is this. We will begin in what is the starting zone. We've already seen various clips of this area in videos released over the past year. You got your character waking up inside of a cave in the desert, then climbing out of that cave, starting the whole survival crafting loop of gathering resources and then doing some crafting and construction. And then from there, as we progress, we will move out of that area into the other maps. They're called maps. I want to call them zones, though. I think that's the best way for at least me to frame it. We've got these zones, an overworld map that we use to travel between the zones. So going back to Joel, he said, when you join the game, you will start in a server called Haga Basin. It's a server with a minimum of 40 other players. This is the starting area, and that is a place where they say you can build, craft, survive, and progress. And then from there, you move outwards. And while having this discussion, by the way, they did mention that you will be able to easily match up and play with any of your friends. No matter what initial server you select or whatever, you can find, group up, and join the guild and play with anyone you please. Although I do assume there will be some like regional restrictions. They didn't specify that, but presumably that is going to be the case. Who knows? Going back to Joel, he said, so once you're ready to leave Haga Basin, you will craft yourself an ornithopter, for example, and you fly out into what's called the Overland map. The Overland map is a server that you can meet hundreds of other players. That's technically he's correct, but it just means you can see them on the map moving around. But meeting them, I guess it depends on how you define the word meet. Like your little blip of a ship will fly past their blip of a ship, but that's all it'll be. But then also, more importantly, the Overland map allows you to see the other locations in the world. Now, at this point in the discussion, they actually showed what navigating the Overland map looks like, and this is, as far as I can tell, what it looks like in game, at least currently. So you've got this top-down view of a topographical map. You can see the movement menu, the keybind menu on the right-hand side, and you can also see in the center of the screen the player's ornithopter flying around the map. You've got the different locations that you can land, and those are the maps as they call them, and you move around by right-clicking, choosing where your ornithopter goes until you arrive at one of the map destinations, and then you pick to land, presumably. And then from here, he discussed some of the different maps that we can visit. So started off by saying, once you've explored Haga Basin and you leave with your friends, you then go out into the overland map. Here you can see that overview of the entire world, and you can sort of see the different maps that you have as an option. And one of those maps options are the social hubs. There's Harko Village and Arakan, which are differently themed bases of the different factions. So these social hubs, they described, will have what you expect. There's going to be quest and faction NPCs. There'll be other vendors. There's bars and trading hubs that you can trade goods. And you're also going to see other players running around in this area. But then beyond the social hubs, other maps include the Deep Desert. Of this, Joel said, the Deep Desert is this massive area. It is 500 square kilometers. That's where you're going to meet hundreds of other players. There is probably going to be a player cap if too many people go there, but we should be able to handle quite a lot, he said. And it's a completely seamless set of servers that are all connected together. It's generally a PvP map with a strip of PvE as players enter so that they can be safe when they first come into the map and they don't get ganked. And then you head out into the desert and you have these adventures where you're harvesting spice and doing other things. And then he went on to say that the cool thing about the Deep Desert is we have this thing called the Coriolis Storm, and every week that storm comes in, it wipes the Deep Desert clean and resets it with a new landscape and new points of interest, making it sort of this infinitely explorable space is how he described it. This is one of the coolest things. I remember learning about this some months ago, these storms that come in and they basically reset the landscape and the points of interest in that Deep Desert area. Now I imagine how it's actually going to work in practicality is they probably have like X number of spots where a point of interest could show up in the Deep Desert, and then every week as the storm rolls in, it resets those spots. So for example, maybe one week you're going to have a point of interest that's like a cave and a spice blow location, and then another week the storm comes in and that location is replaced with a crashed ship, or it's completely covered with sand. And then
I'm not gonna lie, everything that he's saying, I don't fully understand because I've never played anything of this like type of description before. Actually, I don't even think I ever played a like really like put in time and played an MMO. So this is all new to me. So, but I'm trying to branch out into other genres of games. Trying to explore everything outside of first-person shooters, single-player story games like Uncharted or, you know, The Last of Us. And I'm trying to see what this world, like what the gaming world, what else the gaming world has to offer, basically. Try to like explore a little bit. This sounds interesting, mainly because the movie was cool, and this is based around the movie, so that's probably why I feel like this is a good place to start, because I already have an understanding of the world. And I guess that's good too. I could see people who probably never played MMOs kind of being drawn to this because they like the series of the world. So this is like something that's gonna be able to grab new people to the genre of this style of game. The only thing I really need to see, though, that I'm really more interested to see more than anything, is this gameplay. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit here, but I guess like a breakdown of like what you'll be doing, like what's gonna keep you playing, like what's gonna be happening, and yeah, that's basically what I just want to see more of.
the next week, the sand is gone, and maybe now there's a new dungeon here. And again, I assume there's going to be all of these spots scattered around the deep desert where any number of these various types of points of interest could show up from one week to another. And then there's also going to be like highly valuable resource locations, because remember, this is a survival game first and foremost, with some MMO structures and server structure laid on top of it. But the survival crafting thing is the main thing you're doing: gathering resources, crafting, building, making things, and then going out and doing the PvP. PvP. That's the core of this game. Now, during the portion where they were discussing the server structure, they actually showed this brief clip of the different maps that players can fly between. This is just a graphic. It's, as far as I'm aware, not how it's going to look in game, but it did show the maps for the Haga Basin, the Deep Desert, as well as those 2 social hubs, along with some question marks for some unrevealed locations, or maybe just maps that they plan to add in the future. Because, as a final thought, Joel mentioned why they went with this sort of a game overworld map and maps structure. We built this with the idea of making the game last and be expandable for a long time. So the idea of the overland map and being able to place new maps within the map allows us to just keep building on the world, giving players more content, more things to play, more spaces to explore. Like, who knows how the game is going to look 5 years from now. For him, that was the main thing. And then he added, I think survival games have typically struggled with this a little bit because of the one server, one map paradigm. Making the world feel seamless and connected has always been one of our goals with Dune Awakening. Now, I will add here, personally, I don't feel that this overland map really delivers a sense of seamless exploration. In any game that I've ever played that has an overland map, it hasn't felt seamless to me. You know, going into this top-down view that looks quite different from the way the game otherwise plays, and clicking a little avatar of a vehicle that flies around. Yeah, that's way less seamless to me than just one big open world that you could explore with your character or in your vehicle. That doesn't mean that the overland map plus the moving around between the different maps is a bad thing. It's just like, it is less immersive for me personally than the alternative. Like, you know, they could have gone with an open world game like other open world games and just keep expanding it by adding new zones onto the existing one, but they are doing things differently, and that's okay. I'm just saying, again, for me, that is going to make the exploration less immersive. When I'm moving from, what is it, the Haka Village or when I'm moving from the Haga Basin, and then I'm like, seamlessly going into the overworld map to go to one of the social hubs or to go to the deep desert, there is a disconnect for me in that exploration compared to, again, say any open world MMO, like say like the World of Warcraft when I'm traveling from Elwyn Forest to Westfall. Although these maps, from what we understand, are quite big. We did learn that Haga Basin is going to be as big as the map in Conan Exiles, which is rather large, and the deep desert is 500 square kilometers. That is very, 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 very big. So if these maps continue to be of substantial size, it's not a problem. Presumably it might not be a problem. It's just an interesting structure that they're going with. That's not all for today, though. We got quite a bit more, because the day after they posted the Dune Direct, they then put out this developer update article that they titled, "What Makes Dune Awakening an MMO?" Clearly, they are adamant here that we understand this is an MMO, okay? You got it? Do you understand? Dune Awakening is an MMO. So let's see what they had to say about this. So they opened up with a little bit of definition time, describing some of the key differences between MMOs and MMORPGs, saying, "We're very deliberate in our communication about Dune Awakening to use MMO, but not MMORPG. Games like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online have defined a type of progression and core game loops that typify the modern MMORPG. Things like classes, quest-driven progression, endgame raids, and level gating. Dune Awakening walks a different path. It is a survival open world crafting game, and while it features contracts and journeys, which are a form of quests, they are not the core focus of player progression. They are designed more for an open world sandbox experience than the traditional quest and MMORPGs. Also, Dune Awakening is more focused on crafting and building driven progression, exploring a technology tree and creating weapons, tools, vehicles, and bosses. We don't have level gating on items, for example. So if your friend wants to craft and hand you one of the best weapons in the game 5 minutes after you start playing, that's fine. So the core of this we pretty much already knew. Like, we were aware that in terms of structure, systems, gameplay loop, and features, that Dune Awakening is primarily a survival game, although like that lack of level gating on items, that...
I like the fact that if I decide to hop into this game, let's say 3 months later, and I know somebody who's been playing it from day one, and they're like, all right, bro, I know you new here. Yeah, hold us down real quick. Anybody act up, just aim and press the shoot button, bro. They'll go away. They'll go away for a long time. I like that. I like mechanics like that. I don't want to be like, I pull up, and then he's like level 50. I'm level 1. He hands me a level 40 gun, and for whatever reason, my avatar is too stupid to know how to press the trigger. He's not leveled up enough in order to press a trigger. to aim and shoot.
That was news to me, and it's certainly interesting. It seems like at least for gear, you're going to be able to catch up to your friends immediately, even if you start the game late. Although from what I understand, there will be some other progression paths, like the leveling of your skill trees, that and reputation systems, and that will require actually playing to progress. But as far as items, like you can jump in and have some of the best items in the game just by virtue of trading or having your friends give it to you. So what about the MMO parts of Dune Awakening? Well, the article goes on to discuss how the game differs from other survival titles and the things that push it more into the MMO sphere than what we might be used to. Saying there are single-player survival games like Subnautica or The Long Dark, there are small group multiplayer survival games like Valheim or Sons of the Forest, and then there are the larger survival games with officially hosted servers like Conan Exiles, Ark, or Rust. These games tend to have some common traits, such as a single large map running on dedicated or client-based servers. Dune Awakening has a server structure more in common with MMOs. There are also large-scale multiplayer systems in place to support social gameplay, both competitive and collaborative, in areas shared with hundreds of other players. Now, obviously, this will refer to things like the big open-world PvP, but they gave some other examples of systems, including the Exchange, which is a large-scale auction house that you can buy and sell items from other players, as well as the Landsrad feature, where in-game player actions will have a direct impact on the world, changing things about it, although they didn't give any examples as to how this will work, what this will look like, what things will change. That is another thing that we will just have to wait until they share more details. In the next bit of the article, they discussed how the server structure, the maps, and the overland map is going to work, and this actually provided a ton more detail than we got from that earlier video. So it says, our Arrakis is made up of different and separate maps, some larger than others. Here are a few of the main ones. So first off, there is Haga Basin. This is where you start out and you will always return. So this is going to be something that we're continuously coming back to. It is a big, persistent open world, similar in size to the map in Conan Exiles, and it consists of many different biomes. Here, you must survive, build, and fight in the same space as several dozen other players. Player versus player combat exists only in select areas within Haga Basin. So this is not only the starting area, but it seems to be like the base section of our home, and where, like it says, we will be continuously coming back to. Beyond the Haga Basin, there are the social hubs. These are the cities or villages that again act as social hubs where players cannot build here, they can't drive vehicles, and they can't engage in PvP, but instead they go there to interact with the Exchange, NPCs, vendors, and of course other players. The Deep Desert here, this is the massive seamless open space. They call this several times bigger than Haga Basin, and remember, Haga Basin is the size of the whole Conan Exiles map, so this is again very large, 500 square kilometers. We learned exactly how large it's going to be. Here you're going to encounter hundreds of other players from all the different servers in your world, and this is where the large-scale guild player versus player interactions take place, including the battles for spice. And we learned that this whole combined arms, as they call it, is going to include air, ground, and all vehicular combat, as well as troop combat, similar in style to what you get from like a game like Battlefield or even PlanetSide. And this deep desert area, as we mentioned earlier, is where these—
Wait, quick question. Is the whole game gonna take place on Arrakis? Like, if there's all these areas, all these hubs or zones that they were showing in that overhaul map or the overview map, are those just all different areas in Arrakis, in the planet Arrakis? Because I know, like in Dune, there's like multiple worlds, different families. They run different, I guess, planets. I guess like you have planets that have water, you have planets that have like plant life, you know. And then obviously you have Arrakis, which is the sand area. So I wonder if they're gonna allow you to explore other planets to see like a beautiful planet that has water and earthy tones like plants and stuff, or if it's just all Arrakis. So I'm curious about that.
storms are going to come through every week, sweeping across, changing the landscape, and popping up new points of interest and key valuable high resource locations. And then the top layer of all of this is that overland map, and of this they say all of those large but separate maps are connected by the overland map. This is the entire northern hemisphere of Arrakis, and it shows players moving around in real time. Here is where you move between Haga Basin, the hubs, and the deep desert. Traveling across the overland map will consume fuel and water, and if you run out before reaching your destination, you'll automatically enter a zone where you must scavenge for more. So again, we're going to be moving our ornithopter or whatever vehicle in this overland map, clicking to whatever the other maps we're trying to travel to. But if you run out of resources in that process, you're just going to load into some, I'm assuming, some like procedural deserty landscape where you can go around looking for the resources you need to fuel back up your vehicle and then move back into the overland map and continue traveling to wherever it is you're trying to go. They then added, further reiterating that the overland map, besides making the world feel seamless and connected, I don't really necessarily agree with that, but anyways, I'll give them it, gives us the flexibility to expand after launch. Adding new areas to a single map is more difficult and restrictive than adding new locations to the overland map. And there you go. I mean, that pretty much solidifies it. They're doing this because they feel like it's an easier way to add additional content and expand the game's world rather than having the one set seamless open world that they add new locations into. They're just gonna work on these separate maps and then just add them to the game. I guess it's similar in fashion to I guess what Destiny does. Whenever Destiny adds a new location, you've got the you're flying out in space and you're seeing all the different moons and planets, and then you click on the one that you want to go to. Although this interactive menu will be a bit more interactive because you're actually clicking around your ship every so often, running out of fuel and going into a procedural location to get more fuel, and then going back to the map, clicking around and moving your ship, which when I say it out loud, doesn't actually sound terribly fun. Maybe I could do without that part, but anywho. They wrapped up the whole article by basically saying that on the spectrum of sandbox to theme park MMOs, Dune Awakening is firmly on the sandbox side, but it does include many of the more...
I can't even, like, judge what he's saying. Like, what he's saying, I get it. He's saying that it doesn't seem as immersive. Like, he seems like that part of the game of you being in the overview, flying around, might take him out of like the immersion. But me, I don't really have nothing to judge it on. Like, I don't have nothing to compare it to. I did not play Path of Exiles and any other MMO, so I don't know what's the norm. So this is like when I actually play this game, and there's a very good chance that I will, and when I start talking about how I felt playing it, it's gonna be like an honest, like initial raw review. Like, it's gonna be like a review from like someone who never played an MMO before. Like, this is their first time coming into it, and this will be like the first game. So, I mean, my perspective might not be popular, and it could be not popular because maybe I might really like the game, and people that's normally into these type of games might not like it because they're used to it being a certain way. But me being new, not having anything to compare it to, I might just be like, yo, this was amazing. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to get into a whole nother MMO that might not play the same. But who knows? It might be something where it might be great for new people, and for people like him who's used to MMOs, they might not be feeling it. Or it could be the opposite. Maybe he could be feeling it when he plays it, and I might be like, I don't know if MMOs are for me. You never know. But I'm willing to still try it out. I mean, what I heard so far, it doesn't sound crazy. It doesn't sound like crazy in a bad way. I'm more interested in the parts where you're walking around in third person and what's going on with that. So I want to hear more about that.
Our typical MMO systems. We've got those contracts and journeys that are similar to quests. We've got NPCs you can converse with different dialogue options depending on your background traits. We've got the Echo Labs, which are similar to MMO dungeons. We've got character development through ability trees. We got progression through the ranks of Atreides and the Harkonnen, which are just reputation systems essentially. We've got the Exchange, which is a player-driven auction house, and then we've got the Landsrad feature, which we will learn more about in the future, but player input will have an impact on the actual game. But still, even with all of that, they are reiterating that the key focus of Dune Awakening is the survival stuff, exploring, surviving, and building in an open sandbox world full of other players. And I suppose the TLDR of all of that, it's just a long-winded way of saying Dune Awakening is a survival game with some MMO-style features and systems, along with a server structure and map system that they plan to expand over time, all of which sounds fine to me. Not exactly what I was expecting of Dune Awakening, but I wouldn't say it sounds terrible either, except for, yes, I can see the running out of fuel while I'm trying to travel between Hakka Basin and a social hub. I would imagine that would be kind of interesting the first few times and less interesting, tipping towards annoying as time goes on, although maybe you get enough upgrades so that you like never run out of fuel at some point. I guess we'll see how it all plays out. Either way, I am still looking forward to Dune Awakening. The more I learn about it, there are more and more cool and interesting systems. Can't wait to get my hands on it. As for what's next, well, we do know they're going to be showing the game live at Gamescom. This was said to be actual real live gameplay we'll be getting a look at. Gamescom takes place in August, running from the 21st to the 25th, which I can safely say live gameplay is what a lot of us have been waiting for. It's at least what I have personally been waiting for. But either way, there you go. That is the latest update on Dune Awakening. I will have plenty more news for you in the future, as this is one of the more promising looking MMOs. It is an MMO. They've told us in many, many ways that they want us to know this is an MMO. Whatever you want to classify it as, Dune Awakening does seem like an interesting and promising game, and I hope Funcom delivers. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
As far as what I like so far, I like how the game visually looks. It looks good. It looks like in the beginning it starts off similar to how Atreides, I said that Atreides, to how the main character, I forgot his name. Forgive me, I'm still brand new to the Dune universe, but the main character from the Dune universe, where you have to put his hand in the box, it looks like the game starts the same way. I'm guessing that's where you kind of figure out who you're gonna be. So that's pretty cool. And as far as the gameplay, they're saying survival. I do like survival games, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was playing Sons of the Forest. Sons of the Forest was fire. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. I played it when it was in early access and had a blast. Beautiful game. Beautiful game. That was a great experience playing that. That was probably like one of my first real PC experiences because I built my PC about 3 years ago, and that was the first time I started playing games on PC. But the first game that made me really feel like I was playing a PC game, like it felt like, all right, this is PC gaming, for me was Sons of the Forest. That was the first game I was really playing mouse and keyboard. But anyway, I like that survival element. You know, you have to eat, you have to do, sleep, and all that extra stuff. I like that. So I'm guessing in this game they're gonna be showing elements of that. I'm guessing you're gonna have to eat. You have to be careful, possibly, of like, I guess, overheating. I'm guessing, cause I know that was a big thing in the movie. Like, you can pass out or basically die from just hanging out in the sun for too long, because it gets really, really hot. Try to stay in the shade. If you're traversing through the sand, I'm curious as to what the mechanics are traversing over sand, because the sandworm, you don't want the sandworm to come out and get you. So I'm curious as to how that gameplay is. And I remember in the early moments of them talking about this game, they were saying how, oh, you could be out in the world, PvP, like get into an interaction where you're maybe trying to go collect a resource, and then somebody else can pull up trying to get that same resource, similar to like Escape from Tarkov type stuff, like extraction shooter type stuff. And it's like, y'all can be trying to fight over this resource, and then while y'all fighting, y'all could be making so much noise that a sandworm gets alerted and could possibly pull up and wreck shop. And I'm curious as to what that looks like in this game, and also I see the game has like, people have abilities. They can like fly, it looks like, or float, and you could climb. You have grappling hooks. I mean, it looks pretty interesting, I'm not gonna lie. I think this game is coming out later this year, or if not, early next year. I'm gonna keep my eye on it though. It definitely has my attention. Hey y'all, real quick, man. I just went over 200 subs. I know 200 subs is like, it's not 200,000 subs. It's not 200 million subs. But 200 subs, going from 0 to 200 subs, I'm not gonna lie, it's still a big deal for me. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to shout out some of the last few subs that came in. And these are the last 8 you see on the screen. The most previous 8 subs. I know I haven't really been that consistent as far as like posting every day or even every week, but I do want to start posting more often, and I appreciate you guys. Pat Riley down there, SMD Step Potato. I love watching these names because it's so funny to see what names y'all come up with. Too Slippery, Mr. ZG. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or if it's just MSTRZG. The A Man, okay. And oh wait, that thumbnail, not thumbnail, but that avatar looks familiar. Looks very familiar. I think I know somebody who has a tattoo of that on his arm. Christoph Zelenka, appreciate you. And then the last two, because I remember I mentioned in my last video that I was going to shout you out if you got me to 200. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Rodrigo Clufo got me from 199 to 200. So I appreciate you, buddy, for helping to get me right there. And then also just to solidify it, to get me to 201, you got Swaggertron the Mighty. Appreciate you, buddy. And yeah, I'm gonna keep on posting. If you're not aware, I post content about gaming stuff, basically gaming news or reactions or things like that. Now, I'm not your place to get all the newest gaming news, but if you want to get a perspective that maybe your favorite might not be giving you, maybe I might have a perspective that may make more sense to you or might relate more to your perspective. I mean, feel free to come back and keep watching. And eventually, I think I'm going to start doing streams, but nothing too crazy. Maybe like a stream like once a week, maybe like on a Sunday, you know, maybe stream for like a few hours, 2 or 3 hours, nothing too crazy. You know, maybe a horror game, maybe some regular game, whatever, or maybe a game that's recommended. You know, you can also find me on what's it called? I don't even know what it's called now. Twitter, X. It's the same name as Glass Reacts. I'm on there as well.